Okay, so we were doing page 40, which talks about chametz, and we were talking about what is it that chametz is so severe and dealt with so much more severe than anything else. And on this sheet, we have a number of things which shows us in which way chametz is absolutely different than everything else and anything else, in the sense that it's dealt with much more severely. So the answer was that chametz is the inyan of yeshus, and yeshus is not just negative, but it's sort of the source of all other negative character traits. It's the source of everything negative between man and Hashem, and everything negative between one person and another person. And that's the reason why it has to be dealt with so severely. It has to be eradicated, erased, deleted, uprooted completely. So then after that was explained, the question was, if that's the case, why is it permissible all year round? If chametz is a food, that the fact that it's physically, the dough rises, is an indication that spiritually it has some sort of an energy in it which breeds arrogance and breeds yeshus, so we shouldn't be allowed to eat chametz all year round. In other words, it's not just symbolic. Remember, we always point out that in Chassidus, we realize things are not just symbolic. Matzah is not just a symbol of emunah. Matzah actually gives emunah, just like you eat a certain food, or you take a certain drug, and it causes actual changes in the body. Biologically, when you eat matzah, it causes certain changes in the neshama spiritually. And that is, it actually opens up the door and opens up the ability to have emunah in Hashem. And chametz does the opposite. Chametz breeds yeshus, which is gaiva, arrogance, and being self-centered and focusing on everything negative. So you're not going to have chametz, but if that's the case, it should be prohibited all year long. So we said that all year long, not only it's not prohibited, but sometimes you can actually find a situation where it's a mitzvah, dafka to eat chametz, and that is in reference to Shavuos. And every Shabbos, we have 2 chalas, we're performing a mitzvah, and we're doing the mitzvah with chametz. So the answer was that there is a chametz that's a positive chametz. There's a rising that's a positive kind of rising, feeling uplifted and feeling high in a positive way. And what is that? I guess the best word in our language today would be that a person must have a feeling of self-esteem, self-worth, a feeling of pride, because in order to live our life, especially life in general, and especially as a yid, we have to have strength, we have to be able to be assertive, we have to be aggressive, not to be intimidated, otherwise we'd never be able to live our life as a Jew. And that's why the Shulchan Aruch begins with the first thing, Al Yizbayish M'pnei Maligim. It's the first page. You have a Shulchan Aruch with thousands of pages, tens of thousands of halachas. So the first page is the gateway to get to it. The gateway to observe Torah mitzvahs is to be strong like a leopard and not to be intimidated by people that laugh at you, that look down at you. So you have to have a certain sense of pride. You have to have a certain assertiveness and also aggressiveness to go against the tide, to go against challenges. And that is the chametz, which is a positive chametz. And the difference is the chametz, which is not positive, that's something which is based on self. I'm smart and I'm rich and I'm better than other people. I'm more talented. And that leads a person to feeling superior to others, looking down at others. This chametz, it has nothing to do with looking down at others. On the contrary, this chametz means recognizing my quality, but I recognize that Hashem gave it to me. It doesn't breed within me arrogance and that inflation of self. So this is the deeper meaning, what it says in Gemara, Number 10 is a quote from Gemara. So I did make copies of the Gemara. I told you could learn it later on your own, but maybe just for this quote, let me show it to you inside. Remember, I told you these pages of Gemara are all about gaiva, arrogance. You won't find the word yeshus in Gemara. You won't find it anywhere only in Chassidus. It's a Chassidic term. But the Gemara used the word gaiva or gasus haruach. And in Gemara it says that an eighth of is okay. An eighth of arrogance is okay. Not only an eighth of is okay, but some say you should have an eighth of an eighth. Where is this? So look at page 5A1, 5A2. Should be here. I don't see it. Okay, I'll find it later and I'll show it to you. But what does it mean an eighth of an eighth? So that's another discussion. How do these numbers come there?
5A3 on the bottom right column. The last entry on 5A3, I think.
A voice from heaven.
Rabbi Bar Ashi.
Yeah, page 5A3. Or the numbers at the bottom of the page is 48A. And at the bottom, it says, Rabbi Bar Ashi said in the name of Rav, that a Talmud Chacham, a Torah scholar, must have an eighth of an eighth of this so-called, what we call arrogance, but it means, so it doesn't mean arrogant. Arrogant, on the contrary, has to be wiped out completely. Any sense of arrogance, in the real sense of the word, means independence of Hashem. There's no room for any independence. Not an eighth of an eighth, and not even a 16th of a 16th. So what it does mean is that there's a kind of feeling of upliftedness that is actually the opposite. You feel strength, you feel strong, you feel proud, but I'm proud that I'm a Yid. I'm proud that I have the opportunity to connect to Hashem. And that pride is not a pride that makes me feel higher than anyone else. It gives me the strength to do what I need to do. So then we come to another question. If that's the case, wouldn't it make sense that all year long chametz should be asur? But because there's also something good about it, so 8 days during Pesach, we should be permitted to eat, we should be prohibited to eat chametz, because it could be arrogant, and because it's something which has a positive thing to it. But for the most part, arrogance is negative. So therefore, for the most part, most of the year it should have been asur, and a few days a year should be mutter. That's where we left off yesterday with this question. So the answer is that the difference between bittul and the feeling of which the Rebbe calls here being like a mountain, feeling uplifted in a kedushidik way. What is the difference? The difference is like this: bittul is important, and feeling uplifted is important. But the difference between the two things are bittul is a perspective, and feeling uplifted and feeling strong, these are tools for action. That's the big difference. In other words, bittul is something which is more passive. I feel batal to Hashem. From feeling bittul, nothing gets accomplished. So you're batal. In order for things to get accomplished, you have to be active and proactive and do things which are constructive and productive. The tools to be productive and to do things is not bittul. Bittul helps, and bittul guides me that the uplifted feeling that I have should be positive and not become arrogance and not become trying to control people and to exercise my authority on other people, but to do things right without any ulterior motive. And I'm not doing things to inflate my ego. That's the bittul. But the bittul in itself is just a perspective that I'm totally bottled to Hashem. But for action, so let's say, I'm giving an example. Let's say Shliach comes to a new city. He just came there with his wife. They have to start doing something. And it's a little bit intimidating, come to a new place. What do you want? Why did you come here? We're doing fine without you. I came to make a little school for children. I came to do this. I came to do that. You need to go to people to ask them for support, whether it's physical support, financial support, or just support you and that it's a good idea. So you have to meet people. You have to break ice. You have to, all this, bittul doesn't help. Bittul means you're bottled. So you sit back and you could be bittul-matized and nothing's going to happen. In order to do something, you have to feel that you're not intimidated and you have to have strength and you have to be motivated. Just go out there and don't let anything stop you. Those are the tools to make things happen. But you need the bittul, because if you say, well, I'm going out there and I'm going to conquer this place, that's very good, but then it could lead to arrogance and it could lead to things that are negative and chas v'shalom destructive. So in a sense, we can say like this: throughout the day, what are we supposed to be busy with? Bittul or action? Action. So for action, I need the tools, and the tools to action is the self-esteem and the self-worth and the feeling of assertiveness and aggressiveness and the pride and certain of what I'm doing, and I feel confident in what I'm doing. These are the feelings that are the tools to get things done. In order for this to be done properly, it has to be based on bittul. So you can maybe put it in this way: bittul is like the foundation, and throughout the day, all the work that I do, that's the building. Foundation is not the purpose of the building. The foundation is what supports the whole building. So all my avodah throughout the day has to be based on bittul, and then it'll go in the right direction. Because chas v'shalom, if a person is arrogant, then everything that they do is all about their ego and what's going to make me more popular and what's going to make me have more power. And these are the things that destroy communities, destroy families, destroy people themselves, because their mind is focused on the wrong thing. So the bittul is the foundation, but the actual tools for action is the self-esteem. So therefore, for the most part, what should we be doing? For the most part, we're supposed to be doing action. You're supposed to be productive. Whether a person's learning all day or they're working all day, whatever it is they're doing, or they're shlichus all day, whatever you're doing, it's action. The world is a world of action. This world is called asiyah, and our avodah is action. Our avodah has to be based on bittul. So let's look at a day, and then let's look at the year. Every single day, we wake up in the morning. The first thing we do in the morning is what? Bittul. What's Moida Ani? Right, I'm saying to Hashem, I'm all yours. Thank you, Hashem, for giving back my neshama. I'm thankful, I'm grateful. Moida Ani lefanecha, melechai v'kayam, that you gave me back my neshama. Then I get up and I say the brachas. I'm thanking you, Hashem, for giving me the ability to walk and the ability to talk and the ability to see and the ability to eat and the ability to everything. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me mitzvahs. I should learn Torah. That's how I start my day. And the davening is really the same thing. It's again expressing my bittul to Hashem, but a more elaborate expression. And after davening, then I start working. And that's where the rest of the day goes. The majority of the day is avodah, is working. Whether the avodah is working in ruchnistic things, the avodah is working in gashmistic things, but every person has their avodah of things that they have to do and accomplish throughout the day. And therefore, we see how the day, 90% of the day sort of is practical avodah, and the beginning of the day, that's the foundation. So the bittul is the beginning, and that supports everything that comes later. So too with the year, that the beginning of the year, so to speak, as we know that Pesach, Nisan is the beginning. In the beginning, we spend 8 days, which is intense bittul therapy. that we're working on bittul, really in an intense way, by not eating even a drop of chametz. And through doing this, we work out the avodah of having total, complete, absolute bittul to Hashem. The rest of the year is a time for action. And therefore, for the most part, chametz is permissible to be eaten. What are we talking about? The feeling of upliftedness and strength and pride and confidence in a positive way, based on my connection to Hashem. But then, in order for that to stay that way, to be preserved, that it doesn't chas v'shalom get derailed, it doesn't deviate and go up into arrogance, in the beginning of the year, there has to be the avodah of total bittul. So that's why the bittul is only 8 days a year, and the chametz, which is positive chametz, is all year long. Follow? Got it? Makes sense? No? Yes? Maybe? Perhaps? Okay. There's a beautiful sikha from the Rebbe. I don't know if you ever taught the sikha in the classes of sikhas. It's on the Parsha Vayetze. It's a very strange Parsha. Yaakov Avinu is one of the 3 others. Who are the others? These are the greatest tzaddikim that ever lived. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that the others were called Merkava because not only everything they said and everything they did and everything they thought was connected to Hashem, the Alter Rebbe goes further and says every nuance of their body, of their thought, of their speech, and their action was a chariot and a vehicle for Hashem's will, everything they did. What happened in Parsha Vayetze? Yaakov Avinu is busy with sheep, spotted sheep, sheep with lines on them, this color, that color, make more sheep, less sheep. I mean, that's what Yaakov is busy with. So there's no doubt that there's something much deeper going on here. And of course, there are Maimorim Chassidus, there's things in the Zohar, according to Kabbalah, that what was going on is something very, very spiritual, very deep. But anyway, one thought about this is when the Rebbe says that the word tzoin, first of all, sheep, it's also related to Pesach, because Pesach, what is the carbon? The carbon is supposed to be a lamb, which is sheep. Sheep have the nature of them of bittul. There are other animals, even those that are brought a carbon, like an ox. An ox is more aggressive. Sheep are gentle, and they have in them the nature to follow. In fact, there are places in the Tanakh where the Navi, the prophet, is rebuking the Yidden and saying to them that you're following all the other nations, not living the way you're supposed to be. He used the term, why are you like sheep that you follow all the nations around you? So a sheep follows because a sheep has bittul in it. And in fact, the Hebrew word for tzoin comes from the root of it, tzadik aleph, which means tzei. Tzei means go out of yourself, step out of yourself. The whole parsha is called Vayetze. Yaakov went out. So when a person has bittul, as we know, that's the vessel for godliness. So Yaakov, in his avodah, accumulated a lot of sheep. What did he do with the sheep? What does it say? He sold it, and for the money that he had, he bought camels and donkeys, and he bought servants and maids, and it goes on to all the things that he got with the sheep. So Rebbe gives a very beautiful explanation that the sheep represent bittul, but with this bittul, it was transformed into camels and donkeys and ox and maids and servants, meaning to say, bittul is only the basis for the avodah, but the actual avodah itself is action, and that's where you have to have the assertiveness and the confidence and the aggressiveness in order to get things done. That's represented by the other animals and the other things. But where did it all come from? How did it all begin? It began with sheep, and then the sheep was sold, and with that money they did other things. What it represents is the idea that the bittul has to be translated into action. And the action, that's where the upliftedness comes, which is a positive uplift. To feel confident and to feel assertive and to feel how important I am by Hashem, and so on and so forth. So on that list, what I just told you now is number 18. Number 17 we did yesterday, Har Sinai. Number 16 is the pasuk in Chumash where it says, "Ho'ish Moshe, honor mikol adam asher pnei adam." Moshe was the most humble person that ever lived. Today, I just want to check something. Hello? Yeah, you coming over? Okay, thank you very much. Got it. Right, Vish Moshe Anu Mikolon Pnei Adama. In other words, many people think that to be humble means that you don't announce how great you are, but you personally know. The Rebbe once told a story by Kabrengen actually, that there was a rabbi that he was in a courtroom in the United States of America, and the judge said to the rabbi, he was testifying for someone, and he said, "Your testimony is really very important because I know that you are one of the most renowned rabbis here in America." So the rabbi corrected him and said, "Not one of the most, the most." So basically it means like, I really know that I'm the greatest and have to correct you if you make a mistake and you think that I'm only one of the greatest. So where's the humility? The humility is he didn't go around announcing it, making a lot of commotion about it. The Frierdiker Rebbe tells a story. It's also in the memoirs how there was a shul where they had it was Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah, you make announcements. It's like all the Kohanim are called up to carry this Torah scroll. All the teachers should carry this and this. So somebody made an announcement. All the humble people should come and get the next Torah. And a bunch of people came running. So he walked over to one of the rabbis and said, "I noticed that he got the first Torah, you got the second Torah. I always thought you were the most humble person here." "I am," he said, "but he ran ahead of me, and what could I do?" So how do they understand humility in their mind? We're not talking about little kids. And the Frierdiker Rebbe brings the story as an example. Obviously, these were Torah scholars. But in their minds, humility of being humble meant, I don't announce my greatness, but I personally feel very much my qualities and how great I am. But that's the word yeshus. That's, according to Chassidus, is a contradiction to true belief in Hashem. If you're really connected to Hashem, then you don't have that sense of self. The more you realize everything is Hashem, my learning is Hashem, my success is Hashem, even my desire for learning comes from Hashem. The more I realize it's all from Hashem, then there's no yeshus. I enjoy what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. And I recognize my talents. I recognize my abilities, but it doesn't build my sense of arrogance and that self-centeredness that we're talking about all the time. So how do these two things go together? That chametz on one end of the spectrum and matzah is the other end of the spectrum. So this is the answer, because to have emunah in Hashem, you need bittul. Emunah is the ultimate bittul. If a person doesn't have bittul, then he can't accept something unless he understands it. And if you tell him that Hashem does it, he knows what he's doing, I can't accept it because it does not make sense to me. So this ability to just accept Hashem, whether it's the existence of Hashem or accept what Hashem is doing, whether I do understand or don't understand, because of course, most of the things that are happening in this world, we just don't understand. But I have in me this bittul that if it's coming from Hashem, of course, I can't expect to understand. That's the bittul. But so bittul is the opposite of emunah, which is what the matzah is. And this is the main avodah on Pesach, which means, of course, it's something I do every day of the year. But the day of the year that Hashem sort of gives us the power to have emunah and gives us the power to get rid of that sense of yeshus, the one day a year we get the booster shot for this is on the day of Pesach, the 8 days of Pesach. So when you're cleaning for chametz, that's what you're really cleaning. You're kind of cleaning away the yeshus. Now you have to remember, if you start cleaning, in the middle of cleaning, you start thinking about yeshus, at the end of the day, the place will still be dirty because you got thought about yeshus, you forgot to do the cleaning job. So we have to clean physically, but the general idea behind it is getting rid of the yeshus. You know, it says that the Alter Rebbe, when he went searching for the chametz, is in Hayom Yom. When he went searching for the chametz, he searched for the chametz all night long. And he only had one room. I'm sure he had a lot of cake and cookies eating all the time, was falling on the floor. So obviously, the searching for chametz is a spiritual avodah. Like I told you yesterday, it's searching internally to make sure that my feelings and my thoughts are pure. Even though it might appear to be bittul, it could really be gaiva. Like there's an example given in the Maimer where a person could think that what he's doing is bittul, and reality, it's actually yeshus. For example, someone who chooses to only associate with simple people. Is that gaiva or is that bittul? On the surface, you would think that's bittul because there are people that they consider themselves upper class, and they only talk to people that are from the upper class, and they lift their noses and they walk around like they're on top, and they won't look or even talk to someone, even look at someone that's not sort of from their class. You know, this is somebody from the simple, and we're from the upper class, higher, upscale, and we don't look at those people. And here you have somebody that's talking only to simple people. In fact, doesn't even associate with those from the upper class. Isn't that a sign that this person is a very bittul person? Is it possible that it's actually a result of the opposite of yeshus?
Yes.
How?
Yeah.
You're right, but
They
how?
want to be better than them.
What?
Because they like know that they're better than them and want to, the foundation.
Right. Well, basically, when I'm associating with the simple people, I can always feel good about myself. I'm greater than them. I'm bigger than them. They look up to me. They honor me. When I go to people that are better than me or know more than me, suddenly it affects my feeling of my yeshus. So here's an example. There could be many examples where a person is doing something. They can convince themselves, the mind can convince me that I'm doing it because of bittul, but the reality, it's really yeshus. So that's why we have to search with the candle, meaning to make sure that I'm really in touch with my feelings in a true way, and I know what I'm doing is bittul or it's yeshus. So that's pretty much, I think we've covered most of what it says here. So even though when you clean for chametz in the very gashmisdik way, it seems to be a very simple gashmisdik act, but in Torah, gashmis and ruchnis is connected. It's known, what the Arizal says, that if a person would be careful on chametz, not to have even a mashu, not even a fraction of chametz, Hashem will protect him for the rest of the year, that he won't do any averos. Hashem will protect him for not making any kind of mistakes. What does it mean? It means the physical cleaning, even though it's a physical cleaning, nevertheless, it'll bring spiritually that Hashem will help me get rid of my yeshus. There was it's Yiddish, so it's a bit hard to explain, but there was one time his name was Rabbi Yitzchak Braditchev. You probably heard the name, a very big Chassidus Rebbe, right? So the women were cleaning for Pesach, and he said, "Oh, Shah, he listens to me. As bittul. When you look in the Siddur, you might remember when you blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, it says, I'm asking Hashem that all the angels that came out of my shofar blowing, and we say these words, Tashrak, Tashat, it's an acronym. It stands for Tkiya, Shvarim, Trua, Tkiya. So he said, and these are all Yiddish words, Shoiben, Kratzen, Reiben, forgot what the tough is. In other words, the cleaning, the scrubbing, the washing, Angels are created from all that, just like they're created from the sounds of the shofar. This is a plug for the dorm, okay? I think we completed this page, and we'll go to the next part. I didn't explain the chametz matzah, number 13. You see the two words, chametz and matzah? I'm assuming you might have learned the sikha on that. That not only is chametz and matzah the same ingredients, flour and water, they actually spell the same practically. They both have a ches. They both have a mem. They both have a tzaddik. The only difference is chametz is with a ches and matzah is with a hey. And even that, these two letters are almost identical. So what is it that in the writing that makes the difference, the key difference between chametz and matzah is that little opening on top of the hay. That's it. Otherwise, they'd be identical. So the Rebbe explains that the difference is when it's chametz, the only direction to go is down. When it's hay, you can also go up. Meaning that a person who has yeshus, like we said before, the source of all evil, but for one reason, it only allows a person to go down is because no matter how negative a person could be, no matter what kind of negative character trait a person would have, there's still hope. Why? Because there's a remedy for everything. Just like Begashmis. A person can have a cold, a person can have sinuses, a person can have earaches. Baruch Hashem, there's antibiotic. There are things you can do to heal. Baruchli is also there are things you can do to heal. But there's one condition. The one condition is that I have to know that there's something wrong. If I don't know there's anything wrong, I'm not going to do anything that's going to be healing. A person who has yeshus refuses to accept that they have anything wrong. When they talk about a person who is on drugs or a person who is has other kinds of addictions and you have to help him go through a process of rehabilitation, they say the first part of the process is not to go out of the denial. Most part, they're in denial. I have nothing wrong. I have no illness. I have nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. And if I'm fine, there's nothing to do about it. So first you have to recognize, no, it's not fine. Now I can start looking and searching for methods how I can change things. The same thing is Baruchnis. First, I have to recognize there's something wrong. Now that I recognize that, let's look in the Torah. Let's find what does the Torah say? How can I correct this? Or how can I correct that? What is it that interferes and blocks a person from recognizing their fault? That's the inyan of Yeshus. That because this is something which hurts my ego, to recognize that I'm missing something, I'm lacking something, I'm not perfect, and therefore the only direction is down. There's no way that person could go up. Matzah, when a person has bittul, then even if they're not perfect, they still can change and improve and turn things around. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is, obviously we'll have to do it tomorrow, but it's about the inyan of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So this is on page 48. So there's Yetzias Mitzrayim, Begashmias. Eden went out of Egypt. That's something which happened thousands of years ago. And then there's the deeper meaning of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and this is something which takes place Baruchnius. So what we're going to go into is how Chassidus explains Yetzias Mitzrayim, and especially based on the fact that it says in the Haggadah that a person is supposed to picture themselves, every person, as if in this generation we went out of Egypt. The Alter Rebbe goes a step further. And it's not Chas v'Shalom different, it's explaining a deeper meaning to these words. Not only every generation, but every day a person should and could go through the process of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we're going to learn that chapter in Tanya, which explains it. And then we'll explain the whole idea, what it is, Yetzias Mitzrayim Baruchnis. To be continued. You're welcome. Okay.
Обычно делаешь